Welcome back. Sorry to say it's a pretty gloomy outlook for the UK today because the Bank of England's raised interest rates to their highest level in nearly 15 years. Rates have been increased this time by 0.25 percentage points to a whopping 4.5%. And that means a typical mortgage holder on the standard variable rate will see their bills go up by £35 a month. Of course, it's even worse for those people coming off the average two-year fix from 2021 because they'll see their rate rise from 2.58% to 7.3%. Gosh, on £400,000 of borrowing, that represents a truly shocking rise of almost £1,800 a month. So why are rates being pushed up even further? Well, it's because the inflation figure is currently sky high at 10.1%, but Rishi Sunak's promised to halve that, so he's under pressure to meet his target. Joining me again, our political editor, Peter Cardwell. Peter, good to have you here. So this is all about inflation and trying to settle the economy.
Yes, it's a blunt instrument, but it's probably the sharpest instrument that the Bank of England has. The Monetary Policy Committee, it's their job to try to get inflation down at 10.1%, as you said, and interest rates, trying to say to people, essentially businesses, if you're going to develop, don't do that, be a bit more conservative. Even to people who are, of course, facing those sky-high mortgage bills, well, actually, maybe you shouldn't go on a foreign holiday this year. Maybe you should preserve your income a bit more, and that will bring inflation down because prices won't go out of control. But it is a big political thing for Rishi Sunak. One of his 5 planks is to bring inflation down, to halve inflation. One of the major economic think tanks doesn't think that will happen this year, although it may get down to 5.4%. But really, you want it around 2.5%, so that living standards go up at the same rate as wages rise. So it's a very, very difficult time for many people. More economic misery. If you've got a mortgage, as you said, if you've got credit card debts, if you've got loan payments maybe on a car or something like that, those have all gone up today again, and they may go up again even as high as 5%. Because the Fed in America about a week ago put up its rates to between 5 and 5.25%. And the language coming out of the Bank of England, I was down there earlier today, really saying that these rises may continue.
So is it fair, would it be fair to say that Rishi Sunak is to some extent in cahoots with or hand in glove with the Bank of England, or the other way round, that they're hand in glove with him because he has pledged to halve inflation by the end of the year and they are therefore on stream to help him achieve this? Is there a link, a sort of umbilical link between the government and the Bank of England?
Not quite. I mean, it used to be that the government set interest rates, but since the independence, Tony Blair made the Bank of England independent and its Monetary Policy Committee. It's not on hock to anybody. It has to do what's right for the economy and be independent, but certainly they have roughly the same goal. But if Rishi Sunak doesn't have inflation, it's bad for him, but the Monetary Policy Committee, that's not necessarily their goal. So it's interesting, although they would probably want it as low, if not lower than that. So it's a political cost for Rishi Sunak. He has these 5 pledges, 3 of them in the economy, the other 2 being paying down the debt and also trying to get growth. But all those things in concert are very, very difficult. So we've got problems that we've talked before on stopping the boats, getting NHS numbers down, the other 2 of those 5 pledges. I mean, on all 5 pledges, they're all pretty difficult, but on inflation particularly, as I say, one of the big economic forecasters saying that it's probably impossible to have it within a year, and that's the deadline that Rishi Sunak set himself.
And he did say, didn't he, if I fail, he uses the word fail, which is always a very incredible thing to people in the advertising industry, because they know that you shouldn't use negative terms, because if you do, they associate very quickly with your product in people's minds. Yeah. But he did use the F word as in fail and said, and if I fail, what, you will castigate me and give me my due penalty or something of that ilk.
That's right, and it was around January, his first big speech really as Prime Minister, that he came out with these 5 pledges. And today we're seeing just that one of the key ones, will be very, very difficult to do. So politically, this could be a big failure for him, or alternatively, it could go very well for him. And if the economy turns around, all of that and all of that evaluation of those 5 pledges, including the inflation one, people will come to exactly a year after his speech in January in 2024. And that, I'm sure, he will either say, look, give me a little bit more time to do these, or alternatively, I've done them, let's go to an election nice and early, maybe even as early as May 2024. But we'll see. I predict, and I'm usually wrong, but I predict that the election will probably be in November 2024, giving him a little bit more time to get the economy back on track and to try and give the best fist of it. But certainly, Labour And Rachel Reeves, who today the Shadow Chancellor called these, saying people will be racked with anxiety in regard to interest rates going up, and certainly mortgage holders will be very, very worried, as she correctly says. They're seeing this as an opportunity to put, as they say, there have been 13 years of Tory mismanagement of the economy. Expect the Conservatives, including Rishi Sunak, to hark back to the 2008 financial crisis, saying that Gordon Brown and others didn't manage the economy correctly then.
Yeah, nothing in the exchequer, there's nothing left.
That's right.
Not a penny here. That
right.
memorable note that's lived on to haunt them long and will long continue to do so. Well, I'm joined on the programme by Sally Mitchell, business manager and senior broker at The Mortgage Mum. Sally, good to have you on board. So you've heard Peter setting out the stall for why this is happening, why interest rates have gone up to their highest level in 15 years. What are you seeing in your business? What are you seeing with those people who, are either just taking mortgages out or just finding that their fixed rate's coming to an end?
Yeah, it's a really difficult time. To be fair, we've been dealing with it for about 8 months, ever since the lovely mini budget, or the fudget, came out. And so we're quite used to it. I feel like I do repeat myself quite a lot. But this latest rise, is just sending a lot of people slightly closer to the edge, because it's not just the mortgage rates, is it? It's the cost of living. It's everything. We've endured the winter of discontent with fuel prices. The only good thing I can see at the moment is that the diesel in my car costs less than it did a couple of months ago. It's really tough for people. And as you say, this latest increase will mean about £35 on average per month. But what we can't forget is that since December 21, those same people have actually had an increase in monthly payments, of £480. So it's just another extra bit on top. They've been struggling and juggling for really quite a very long time.
Sally is absolutely right, Vanessa, in everything she says. There's also perhaps a little bit of good news today from the head of the Bank of England, the governor of the Bank of England, who's talking as well about energy prices coming down. Obviously, we'll be using a bit less energy anyway as the summer comes up. Hopefully, it'll heat up a little bit as well. But also, energy bills, which are about £3,000 on average, should hopefully come down to about £2,100. Still a lot of money, of course, for struggling families, especially if everything else is going up. But at the same time, a little chink of light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe that will mean other prices will come down as well.
And Sally, are you noticing anything in the realms of house prices, property prices coming down? Has that percolated through yet to you and to your customers?
Yeah, it's certainly taking longer for houses to sell. The average completion now from viewing to completion is 20 weeks, and it was a lot less than that. The average price is going down. We've had various surveys coming out, but the ONS, the one that I go to, that does show a reduction in house prices. Obviously, that's quite geographically loaded. It depends where you live. But when you're holding onto a property with a mortgage, the last thing you want to know is that your house is worth potentially less than it was a few months ago, or what you think it should be worth.
So Sally, that's taking us into the realms of negative equity when that happens, when your house is worth less than you paid for it. When that happens, and let's hope it doesn't, but when it does, explain what the knock-on effect is for the house owner.
Well, basically, you end up with a big bill. If you have, let's say, £100,000 mortgage and your house is only worth, or you can only sell it for £90,000, you've got to find that £10,000 on completion. It's quite bad. We haven't seen the likes of negative equity for a very, very long time. But only yesterday, a new 100% mortgage product was launched by one of the building societies, by Skipton, to help people trapped in a rental cycle who couldn't save for a deposit to get onto the housing ladder as first-time buyers. And we've had a lot of interest in that in the last 24 hours, because there's very, very many people out there who are renting, can't see how on earth they can get out of it because rents are going up. There's a squeeze on the private rental market. There's not enough social housing. The mortgages on buy-to-lets have really risen. So there's a lot of landlords who are exiting the market, which means that supply is lower, which means demand is higher, which means rents go up. So it's a bit of a vicious cycle. There are some chinks of light. I do like optimism and chinks of light. There are a few things that I suggest you do if you are really struggling with your current mortgage or thinking, crikey, I'm coming up to a remortgage. and I just don't think I can do it. Before you sort of, put the house on the market and up sticks, do talk to a broker. I know, obviously, I'm going to say that because that's what I am, but you do need professional, unbiased advice. You can look at, if you have the ability, stretching your term, extending the term of the mortgage, which means that your monthly payment will reduce, but obviously you'll be paying your mortgage off for longer. It's something that you should review every time you look at fixing your mortgage for another period of time, because the longer you pay it off over, the more interest you pay in the end. So we're always trying to get the mortgage term down to the shortest available to you or possible for you. But in these funny times, and I use funny, as in strange, it's a good tool. It can work. And with more and more people working past state retirement age, because we have to, a lot of lenders will lend up to age 75 or even age 80 if it's feasible and plausible with their employment. So that is something that can be looked at. The other option is perhaps looking at interest only, riskier, because you end up owing the whole capital outlay at the end of the term. But again, as a short-term fix for some people, it might be an option, and that drastically reduces what you pay every month. So it's worth discussing it with a broker who can advise you, but all is not lost. And we will rise again. It's now. If you think about your mortgage over 25, 30 years, there are peaks and troughs. There are times when it costs you a lot more, and there are times when it costs you a lot less. And we just happen to be in a rather prolonged period of a lot more.
And can I ask you about downsizing? Are people doing that now? Is that a thing? And because lots of people have said over the years they would like to do it, but the right kind of properties to downsize into just don't exist. The sort of property that people who are downsizing want isn't there. It's a real nightmare to find. I don't know whether you agree with that. And I don't know whether people are downsizing at the moment.
People are considering it. Normally with downsizing, they have to move areas as well to get any sort of real benefit in terms of equity being released and having a lower mortgage. So it's difficult because it often means moving further away from your job or your family or your roots where you are. What I suggest to people before they do that is look at renting out a room. It's tax efficient. If you do have a spare bedroom or, I don't know, who has an annex, but something that you can actually use for someone to come and stay in, it can work, and there are benefits. Again, another little chink of optimism. I had a client who took that advice and said, right, I'm going to ride it out. I'm going to get some extra income in by renting out a room. Rented out one of her spare room and fell in love. How lovely is that?
Okay, we're all going to do that.
And the added benefit is the room's free again, so you can give it to somebody else.
What a great idea. Okay, we're all going to do that this afternoon. That's a very good idea. Tomorrow morning, that's what we're going to do. Now, Sally, you're going to stay with me. We don't usually do that with guests, but you're going to stay with me because we're going to be talking after the break about adult children still living at home. It's a front page story, front page of the Times today, front page of the Telegraph. Coming up after the break, have your adult children, like Sally's, move back into the family home to save money? If that's the case, you're in the majority. I'm Vanessa Feltz, and you're with Talk on TV, radio, and online.